folks. Of course, there was a barrage of rockets fired into Israel from Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu vowing retaliation. Joining us now to talk about, touching on that, but speaking more specifically about the push to isolate Israel in Europe, is our friend Alan Dershowitz, of course, Harvard Law professor, author, and commentator, you name it. Hello, Mr.
Hi.
Dershowitz, Professor,
Good.
sir. How are you?
And you know, these two issues are very closely related because every time there is a peace effort underway, and there are negotiations going on now led by Secretary of State Kerry, every time there's a peace effort, two things happen. Number one, the radical Islamic jihadists, in this case in Gaza, fire rockets to try to disturb the peace. They're directed almost as much at the Palestinian Authority as they are at Israel, although the Israelis are the ones who suffer. And second, the BDS movement, the boycott, divest, sanction movement, and the attempts to isolate Israel increase. That is, every time Israel moves closer to peace, the efforts by European radicals to isolate Israel increase. Because the one thing that Hamas terrorists and the academics on the hard left in England and France have in common is they both do not want peace. They want to see the end of Israel rather than a two-state solution.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And I want to bring another element into this mix here, and that is the rhetoric of both President Obama in an interview given to Bloomberg, but even prior to that, Secretary Kerry, and we have that soundbite here, that video.
I believe that, and you see for Israel, there's an increasing delegitimization campaign that has been building up. People are very sensitive to it. There's talk of boycotts and other kinds of things. Are we all going to be better with all of that?
In other words, hey, Israel, and this is what Obama said, if you don't come to the peace table under our terms and the Palestinian terms, you're going to be isolated, and guess what? We really can't do anything about it.
Well, they're dead wrong. Of course they can do something about it. The first thing they can do is condemn those who conduct these isolation tactics and the attempt to boycott the only democracy in the Middle East, the only country that has artistic freedom and academic freedom, and to single out only the nation state of the Jewish people. It's not right for John Kerry, who's my friend, a longtime friend, to hold the sword of Damocles over them. What John Kerry should have said is, and we will stand behind you if there are efforts to isolate you or to boycott you. And also there should be pressure on the Palestinians. The United States should say, look, we will put pressure on you, the Palestinians, if you don't make compromises. Both sides have to make compromises. You can't put all the pressure on Israel. Look what would happen if Israel were to withdraw to the 67 lines. That would mean that their Tel Aviv airport, Tel Aviv itself, and Jerusalem would be within rocket range of the kinds of rockets that are coming from Gaza as we speak. And, of course, Israel prevented even longer-range rockets from getting to the Gaza when they captured that ship, which had Iranian rockets from Syria that were destined for Israeli targets. And the targets are schools, school buses. By the way, the rockets usually are sent at the time that school children are on the way to school in the hope of hitting a school bus. One of these came very close to a library. This is a Jewish holiday coming up this weekend. I happened to be there several years ago during this holiday in Sderot when a rocket hit within a couple of miles from where we were celebrating the holiday of Purim, the holiday in which the Jewish people defeat the Iranian enemies who were trying to kill them. So it's ironic.
It is very ironic, isn't it? You wrote a great piece at Newsmax.com, and the question that you answered, one of the questions, why the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe, Western Europe, and you talk about this myth that permeates many countries in Europe that they had nothing to do with the Holocaust when in fact they did.
Oh, that it's a horrible myth that the Holocaust was brought about only by Germany and the Ukraine and Eastern Europe. It's total nonsense. The French sent more people to the death camps than the Nazis asked them to. The Norwegians voted and supported a Nazi leader. The Dutch were incredibly filled with collaborators. It's a...
Uh-oh. Modern technology, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to have to try to get Alan Dershowitz back. But it is very eye-opening what he has said about the Holocaust being perpetrated by Europeans by Nazi sympathizers and collaborators among the French, the Dutch, the Norwegians, the Swiss, the Belgians, the Austrians, and other Europeans, both Western and Eastern. And he said if the French government had not deported to the death camps more Jews than their German occupiers asked for, if so many Dutch and Belgian citizens and government officials had not cooperated in the roundup of Jews, if so many Norwegians had not supported what was going on, if Swiss government officials and bankers had not exploited Jews, if Austria had not been more had not been more Nazi than the Nazis, the Holocaust would not have had so many Jewish victims. And I think that's an eye-opener, and many people don't realize that. Let me know when we get Alan back, hopefully, because I do want to ask him about this phoniness, if you will, where people, countries, groups will say, oh, I have nothing against the Jewish people. I'm not anti-Jewish. I'm anti-Zionist. I just don't like Israel. But I love Jews. That is, for the most part, now there might be a handful of people that believe that when they say it, but for the most part, that is absolutely not the case. They try to mask their hatred for Jews by making some kind of distinction. When the Jewish homeland is under attack, they support that. They like that. But they love Jews, you see, as long as they're not in Israel. You know, kick the Jews out of their little itsy-bitsy, tiny-weensy part of land, which, by the way, they use to welcome all religions, all faiths. You know, whenever I hear go back to the 67 borders, I cringe for a number of reasons, as accurately depicted by Professor Dershowitz, the indefensible borders and the nature of them being indefensible. But I also cringe because I remember, you know, Professor, welcome back. We only have about 2 minutes out, but I did read the paragraph where you talked about Swiss and Austrian, Norwegians, and all that you had been alluding to. But I want to turn our attention now to this false statement where people say, "Oh, I have nothing against Jews. I just don't like Zionists. I don't like Zionism. So we hate Israel, but we love Jews." Did we lose him again? Is that a bad phone connection? All right, he must be on a cell somewhere or something, and it's unfortunate. But I hearken back to, the fallacy is that the Israelis have to give the land back to the Palestinians. When did the Palestinians have a country? When did they have the land? Who were their leaders? There was no Palestinian country. The fact of the matter is, Israel took, they took land from Jordan, they took land from Egypt, and they took the Golan Heights from Syria. In the wars. They never took it from the Palestinians. So when they say give it back to the Palestinians, well, we only have a minute left, but Alan, I hope you're there. Just in a minute, it's unfair, and I apologize, and we'll have you back. But if you could address this statement when people say, I'm just anti-Zionist, not anti-Jewish.
Well, I think it's total nonsense. They're against the only nation state of the Jewish people. They favor a Muslim state in Palestine, which would be a church-state integrated state. They favor states that represent other religions. It's only the nation state of the Jewish people, which they think is racist. That's what the discredited UN resolution said. So I think if you're anti-Zionist, really basically you don't like the nation state of the Jewish people. And that's bigotry.
Everybody go to Newsmax.com. Check out the great piece by Alan Dershowitz, Europe's Alarming Push to Isolate Israel. Professor, my apologies for the technical difficulties, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye. Alan Dershowitz, ladies and gentlemen. All right, when we come back, we're going to go in depth on the missing airliner.